Hello everyone, my name is Makaya and this is the piece that I created for the play Detroit 67. So, when we were reading the play, I couldn't help but notice the kind of how Sheldon Lang managed to hold each other and still have their relationship even though they were in the midst of all this chaos. So I knew I wanted to depict that sort of situation in my piece. So, starting with the outside, I used acrylic paint to create the background, and I used the reds, yellow, and a little brown. And I use these colors to create sort of that chaotic environment because normally when you see red, you think of danger like a fire. Also tying it to Detroit 67, the bar that Lang had bought had been set on fire, so I also wanted to represent that. So within the background, I do have a few symbols and words. So the symbols I decided to use were a dark green dollar bill to represent money. And I wanted to use the money because at the beginning of the story, we know that Shell and Lang were kind of at odds with how to spend their inheritance. And Lang wanted to buy the bar, but Shell had wanted to save the money because she wanted to just make sure that she had some stability in the future. The little blue caps right here are police hats, and I of course colored them dark blue to represent the police, and their badges are silver. I wanted them to represent the police because of course they definitely didn't help de-escalate the situation. They definitely created more chaos with them going in being very abusive, overusing their powers, and just simply police brutality. So for the words, I chose racial unrest, violence, love, social injustice, and civil rights. Starting off with the appearance of the words, I wanted them to be bold, capitalized, and I also decided to keep them black and white. I didn't want them blending into the background. And that is because these are issues that seem very apparent. Looking at what we're going through now, these issues are definitely in the middle of all this chaos that we have been going through since the summer. And even though it seems to be very clear and very in our faces, we sometimes, or not even sometimes, we do pretend that they don't exist and we don't know why things are going the way they are, but in reality, it's very obvious. Um, so now going to the second portion of my piece, I wanted to create that sort of like tranquility and show that bond that Sheldon Lang shared. So that's why I chose the colors that I did for the middle. And those colors were dark blue, light blue, and just a little purple. I wanted them to be more cool colors to directly contrast the outside of this ball. And also to create sort of a more divide, I chose to add a thick white line of paint between the two colors. And not only did I want that to represent the sort of like the harsh contrast, but I wanted it to kind of represent that even though all these things are still going on around them, there seems to be this sort of like purity on the inside between Sheldon and Lang. It seems to be like they definitely have each other's best interests at heart. I also use symbols and words on the inside. So first starting off with the hands, they were meant to represent Shell and Lang reaching towards each other. The color difference was not particular at all. Actually, what happened was I was originally planning to paint both of the hands black, but I ended up seeing a brown, and I've never seen a brown that was that rich before, so I know I had to use it. So this, while one hand is black, one hand is brown. I chose to put love in between the two hands because that is basically the end goal for all of these. So I put love in between the two hands too because that is essentially what Black people are wanting right now. We're just wanting everyone to have the same type of love for each other, regardless of the skin tone or whatever other category they try to put us in. Also in the circle, I have a Black Lives Matter fist, and I placed it in the bottom corner. Specifically that placement because I wanted to serve as more of like a support, just to let the Black people know that there are people out there fighting for them. So you may have noticed that I have two symbols that are half in and half out of the circle. So starting at the top, I put the Grim Reaper half in, half out of the circle because he represents death. And of course, in this chaotic environment, there are going to be deaths of innocent Black people, especially with the history of the police, which is very unfortunate. On the other hand, I put it half on the inside because death seems to be the only thing that brings the attention to the problem that we need to keep working on it. So actually this year, we all know the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. Those deaths sparked national protests, and in their deaths, we, or the Black people of the United States, and with the help of other people, there were people across in other countries trying to fight for us as well. But with those deaths, we managed to bring more attention to this issue and basically just raise awareness of it, and that we need to keep working to abolish this racism that is in this country. At the bottom, I put the clock half in, half out. So I put the clock half out in the chaotic environment because many times when racism is brought up, there is sayings of, oh, that happened hundreds of years ago, it's over now, Black people have so many more rights and all this and all that. But just as people say that this is an old issue and there is no more racism, that's completely not the truth. They just think that because it happens, or it was very heavily prevalent many years ago, that just because it's kind of kept on the wraps and people are not as open with it, that it has completely disappeared. But that is not the case at all. Not only is there racism, but there is an entire system that is set up to not really work with Black people. So yes, over time, blatant racism has gotten better, but it has just become more discreet. I put the clock half in because while time seems to be the answer for everything, it kind of is the answer for everything, because there are so many odds that are stacked against us Black people that the entire system cannot be brought down in a day. We simply have to give it time to kind of overhaul the system to keep working towards a more equitable system.